had the opportunity to do American Ninja Warrior, got selected in 2019 and 2023 for American Ninja Warrior. And then I applied for Titan Games, the second season, so season 2, got selected for that and competed and won the West Regional, region for that. And then made it to the finals and got second. So runner up on that.
All right. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another exciting episode of the First Optimal Podcast. Really excited. We have Margaux Alvarez here. We were chatting a little bit before we got the recording going. But if you don't know who she is, you'll definitely know a lot about her by the end of this. At least I'll do my best to cover as much ground as we can, because there's a lot to cover here. But really appreciate you joining us. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Of course, I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, we'll see where this thing's gonna go. But we were talking. She's been on NBC's Titan Games. She's multiple-time high-level CrossFit competitor, and we'll get into kind of her accolades and accomplishments there. Talking a lot about guns beforehand and safety and different, very, very competitive. And you can just look at your Instagram and look at her Instagram if you guys want to find out more, which we'll get into today. But I would like to start, if you don't mind, just kind of walk us through like what got you into the first phase of I guess I'll frame it as like the competitive environment, if you will. And then where are you today and what are you most excited about now? If we kind of walk through that high level journey, I guess.
No, it's a good question. I think, I started doing like activities or sports back, I think it was like 5 years old. I did Pee-wee tennis. I think that was just more for fun. But then I think I started kind of around 8 years old. I moved into like Taekwondo, ballet, a little bit of gymnastics, horseback riding, and I started competing in Western riding and then moved into equestrian. And so I think that competitiveness maybe started early on, just wanting to push myself, challenge myself. And then eventually that turned into being a little more competitive, not only in sport, but also school, like putting the precedents, like I should have all A's. I should make sure I'm a 4.0 student. And so I think I just kind of had that at a young age growing up. I know within the golf realm, my dad would tell me, second place is the first loser. So that kind of gave me, I think, all right, cool. I need to be first then. I need to be always winning, which winning is hard. Anyone that's done competition or anyone that's tried to achieve, a podium spot in anything it's very difficult. So I think that kind of was the initial start of it. And it kind of ebbed and flowed through life and what I was doing. And then when I found CrossFit in 2011, I think that's where I found something where I wanted to push myself, not only physically, but also mentally. And that was, I guess, that igniting moment where I decided, all right, I'm going to push myself and try to, put everything into this endeavor to see how far I would take it. And then that led to many, many years, 6-7 years competing at the games high level. And I think that mentality to continue to push myself transferred into business, into coaching and education and speaking. And I think for me, it's just, I want to constantly elevate myself. Like I'm okay with putting myself in uncomfortable environments. Yeah. I don't know why I do that, but I think that's where growth comes.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I definitely want to unpack that further, but I did have a couple selfish curiosity questions because as a father of 2 girls, I'm curious to what was it your dad talking about do you think that was a big influence on your competitive edge or?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think my mom typically drove us to all the events that we were doing, all the sports we were doing, whether it was ballet or horseback riding. I think my dad would kind of encourage myself and my sisters to push ourselves and, be the best. So I think that part of it was there. I think I'm the first daughter, the eldest of all 3 of us. And so I think for myself, it was like, well, I need to be the best version for myself, but also I want to set the standard for my sisters. If my mom is busy, I'm the second mom, I should take care of my sisters. I should watch over them. So also I should make sure that I'm setting a good standard. Not that I thought that back then, but I think if I'm having some reflection or like some look back to my younger years, I think it's maybe what was ingrained, not knowing that. But I definitely think that push from my dad was like, hey, don't be a loser. Don't be second place. Not that he was being serious, but also, kind of joking, but also at the same time, like that maybe pushed that there. And again, like I showed up in school trying to be a top A student. I remember I think it was my first semester of college. I went to Hawaii Pacific University, and I think I got like a B+ in algebra. And like math is not my jam. Calculus, all that, like worst subject for sure. Numbers, yep. I think I have a little bit of dyslexia, so like numbers are always difficult for me. but I had like a B plus, and I was so sad that I didn't have straight A's. My mom was like, "It's okay." Fine. It was like I got an 89.9 versus like a 90. And so again, that I think that drive is something ingrained in me, or maybe that something was curated over the years that, built up. And so now I'm at the point where I'm like, or I'm constantly going to push myself. I've learned obviously like to not kill myself over it, in the sense of, oh, okay, if it's not the best, then it's horrible. Like, no, like better to put something out than never put something out at all.
Yeah, no, I think about it because both my daughters are completely different, but there's like similarities too, to where it's like vastly different, athletically and aggression and all that, like personality traits, etc. But we were talking recently, my wife and I, about conferences, because I walked in and I'm like, have you checked her homework lately? I was like, I haven't really been checking, because my wife and I, she recently retired, but we both coach for years and volunteer and stuff. So we're pretty involved in sports, but we don't coach our own kids. We don't, it's just like, whatever you want to do, we support you. Like, I don't want to be that dad.
Yeah.
But because I would screw it up. But my point is, so I sat down, and like the first 5 seconds, guys, like, yeah, 100%. She's great. She's awesome. We sat there. I'm like, hey, by the way, I'm like, what class is this? What subject is it? Because I'm just like, I felt like such a failure. But we were talking about like all of them, were straight A's and 100%. And I'm not bragging. I'm actually calling myself out, because I was like, man, I was a little asleep at the wheel at the beginning of the year because of the business and football and all that like the kids just never really got in trouble. So it just out of sight, out of mind. I'm like, man. And so I was grateful that they worked so hard, but they're always, even as they get older, they're still pumped to come home and show us their grades. And you're like, yeah, cool, great. So that's pretty cool. But then my secondary, on an educational standpoint, my 10-year-old, we got both of them into, the girls into jiu-jitsu, but my 13-year-old, like, we'd catch her in the corner, letting like the new person like smash her for a while and then roll them at the end of the class. I'm like, what were you doing, just laying there the whole time? Well, I didn't want to be mean because it was his first class. I'm like, still work your technique. Like, what am I paying for here?
Technique for sure.
Yeah. But then my 10-year-old is like, you wouldn't know it, but looking at her, she's like ready to throw up, and they're doing like King of the Hill. And she's like, I am not leaving the center of this mat. Like, you are not getting me down. Even people better than her, stronger than her, they couldn't get her down because of will. And I'm just like,
That's amazing.
I would have given up 20 minutes ago. Like, what are you doing? Because like, I have that drive, but I'm also like, I'm not going, there's no trophy, there's no nothing. Like, it's all good. Like, just have fun, let the next person come.
Perspective comes with time and wisdom.
Oh my gosh, man. Like, yeah, it's just funny. So when I was just, it's kind of cool for me. I think God knew what he was doing, not giving me boys. So I probably would have screwed him up, but seeing other like people like yourself, like especially with women, and that competitiveness in multiple different events, and like you said, putting yourself out there in these uncomfortable situations, I agree wholeheartedly with that. And it's just kind of cool to hear about that and see someone further along in life and established like yourself, like what that journey was like. So
yeah, no, I love they're doing it. I wish I've done a little bit of jujitsu here and there, and I love that seeing like young girls and boys getting into it. I think it's such a great sport activity to be involved in, because one, situational awareness, but also being able to defend yourself, and just preparation and being able to like make sure you can hold your own. I think that's really important. So I love that you're doing that for the girls. That's awesome.
Yeah, they recently were able to, the one is in travel soccer also. And she's like, Dad, I like jujitsu, but I love soccer. And I'm like, all right. So she's taking a little break, but we were just recently at a tournament, and some of her friends ended up winning, and that she used to practice with all the time. So I think she's like a trophy hunter for sure. She's like, oh, wait. You didn't tell me they're giving out trophies. Like, that's a pretty cool looking trophy.
That's funny. That's awesome.
Little 10-year-old, just trophy hunter. That's all she wants. But, so speaking of trophies and all that good stuff, just for the audience out there that may or may not know, a lot of accomplishments, a lot of different things. Like, walk us through some of your athletic accomplishments, like CrossFit Games, all that good stuff. And keep in mind too, for the audience out there too, if you wouldn't mind, maybe some of them have, like myself, like limited exposure to CrossFit,
for sure,
and what that means at these different levels, and maybe you can kind of unpack that a little bit for us.
Yeah. So within like the CrossFit space, I competed from 2013 to 2019, the CrossFit Games. It was 7 years in a row that I competed. 6 was individual, so competing as an individual versus a team. My final year in 2019 was a team sport. It was 2 females, 2 males on a team. And for those that, if they're familiar with CrossFit, it used to kind of be like a 3-tiered system. You had open, regionals, and the games. In the games, you have 40 women, 40 men from around the world. So you have to essentially qualify and get there. So to be able to qualify 6 years in a row, like that was obviously my goal, was to compete in 2012. Definitely wasn't experienced, didn't have, the skill set, the strength, the endurance for that. But I worked my ass off, and I had a coach that helped me and was able to get there in 2013. And so to compete at the highest level, obviously it's a challenge, right? But it's something I literally poured everything into. And my mindset was, if I put all my eggs in this basket, and if I make it, awesome, it'll be worth it. If I don't make it, then at least I tried and put everything in there. So competed 7 years in a row at the highest levels in the CrossFit space. And if the people don't know CrossFit, it's pretty much, you think of like 10 different physical skills, excuse me. I would add in mindset as like the 11th skill, right? Because to have a good psychology base and mindset's important, but it's anything from Olympic lifting to endurance to gymnastics. And so that was something that I think tested me physically, mentally, emotionally. And I think it was a great outlet. When I first found CrossFit, I think it was a very good outlet to deal with the passing of my sister. I found that movement became medicine and therapy for me. Running was kind of my first outlet after she passed. I was like, all right, well, I need to like go clear my thoughts. And so I started doing half marathons and like obstacle course racing.
Yeah.
Did that, moved into the CrossFit space, and that just kind of allowed me to do that. I won a couple events within the CrossFit space, the pegboard event in 2015, 2018 was a marathon row. Probably will never row another marathon. Done that twice now, so that was good. I had the opportunity to do American Ninja Warrior, got selected in 2019 and 2023 for American Ninja Warrior, and then I applied for Titan Games, second season, so season 2, got selected for that and competed and won the West Regional, region for that, and then made it to the finals and got second, so runner up on that. But it was a really cool experience to obviously meet The Rock and be on that show, but also allowed me to also allowed me to, share my story, but also showcase that, whatever adversity you're going through, you can overcome that. And I think the biggest thing was, my sister passing and having that hardship. And we all have our own stories, right? Like some are going to have varying degrees. Some might be worse than others. Others may not be as hard as others. But who am I to judge on what hard is for each person? It's all relative. But I think The Rock wanted to allow individuals that have gone through hard situations and had challenges in their life to give them a platform to share their story and hopefully elevate and inspire, other young women and men. And I remember having a conversation with them kind of as the episodes were coming out, because they were supposed to come out in 2021, but because everything got shut down, the Olympics got pushed back, they ended up running them in 2020, I think like June through August. So being able to have the viewership, I think when we had a conversation, he said like the viewership from men to women was like 50%. So it was like 50 million viewers, half of them being women, was incredible, because most viewership with anything like that activity or, challenge base is typically heavier on the men's side. So to have more women or almost equal was, men to women watching, I'm like, that's incredible. That's an absolutely amazing. So it was really cool to be a part of that and have that opportunity. I mean, my whole goal was to, show that it's okay to talk about your challenges and your struggles and that we can't overcome them. But I think, I feel like death is something that we don't talk about a lot in the US. It can be kind of like taboo in a way. And it's hard, right? Because like, how do you handle death, right? If you don't talk about it and you just compartmentalize it and push it down, at some point or another, it's going to come out. So if we can talk about it or learn to share the story, like one, their legacy gets to still live on, right? We get to honor them, but then we also get to continue on. And for me, it was embodying how she lived and how her approach was in life. And so now I've, changed my perspective on how I live life, but also hopefully I give inspiration and motivation to other people out there saying, hey, no matter what challenge or what hardship you're going through, surround yourself with like-minded individuals, find something that's going to help you get through that, which for me was fitness and training and exercise. And whether it's jujitsu, whether it's hiking, walking, Zumba, doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be in the gym. But I think it's a great avenue for people to find solace. And if I can hopefully be a beacon for people and be someone that they look up to, or be someone that says, hey, she changed my perspective on how I want to live life, I'm going to continue to live life versus live in this cave. I hope that I could be that for some people out there.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know we'll get into a little bit, because you do a lot of like public speaking engagements. I would say, I don't know if this is a good way to label it, but like motivational, uplifting kind of mindset, right? Like I know some of that comes with, some of the cheesiness and whatever, but that's definitely not the case for everybody out there. But I think it's really, moving, even if someone doesn't have the same story or the same struggle, but just to know like, wow, like if that happened to me, I would be here and she's here. Like to
Yeah.
really like, holy moly, like look at that. Like and my issue's here and I'm trying to go here. Like I can do that. You know, so I think even if the story itself isn't directly related to someone's struggle, from at least what I kind of gather from seeing this, seeing with people, you know, working through hardships, but turning tragedy into beauty, you know, and really shining a bright light on it and bringing some positive on it. I think that's just such a powerful thing, because a lot of people, they need that, they need that inspiration. And I think those are the types of things that are the most impactful for people. And especially I would say in the women's space, there seems to be a lot more of that, seems to be a lot more of a focal point as far as, you know, the empowerment, the confidence, things of that nature, which I think is just really cool that you're doing those things. And I wondered, before I jump on another topic, if you wouldn't mind, maybe for those who don't know, whatever you're comfortable with sharing
Yeah.
about your sister and how long ago she passed, and just kind of where were you in life, and what happened, you know, what
Yeah.
happened from that.
Yeah, so she it was in 2008, so January 31st, 2008. We actually got to spend some time together during Christmas vacation. I came back before my last semester of university. We actually got to go snowboarding together, and it was crazy because we came back. It was a long day. We were exhausted. She's like, "I'm gonna go meet with my girlfriends, and we're gonna go out." She's like, "I'll see you at the airport the next day." I was like, "Okay." She definitely went out a little too hard. I was 22 at the time. She was 20. So like they were going out and hanging out. But didn't see her at the airport, but like she definitely made the most of life. And so I was finishing my last semester. She actually had gone through some hardship. She kind of got into like, not so much like, I wasn't a heavy drug user, but like she was kind of like having fun and partying
Sure.
in Portland and was going to university there. And she wasn't really finding any friends. She was struggling to kind of find her way. And she ended up going for business, like finance, because my dad was like, "Hey, this is, you know, a good industry or a good way to go." And so she tried it, but it just wasn't her jam. She was an artist at heart and she was absolutely so talented. And she got that from my mom for sure. And
Yeah.
so after 2 years, she's like, "You know what? Like, kind of struggling." So she came home. She was kind of cleaning up, figuring out what she wanted to do. She did an art class, had tons of paintings. One of her paintings was actually one of the labels I did for my wine. And so come like 2008, she had got two different jobs, one as a hostess, one as a server, and was going to like, you know, figure out how she could save money. There was a culinary school specifically focused on baking and desserts down in San Diego. I was planning to go to the Bay Area. My other sister Remy was going to go to LA for dance. And so kind of the whole thought process was like, "Hey, we'll all go to California," which we were all born in La Jolla. So we're like, "Oh, we'll go back to
Okay.
California. We'll, you know, be close-ish," right? And then she was actually on her way to work when it was like a crazy snowstorm had come through. And she was like, it was her first day on the new job. She was like, "Well, I can't not go." And so she went up there. It was like a freak accident, lost control because of the ice. And there was like only one other car on the road and they T-boned her. She died on impact, which I think in retrospect, she had a vision. My sister was very intuitive. She had a vision or had a feeling that she was going to pass away young, that she expressed to my
Mm,
mom. Like crazy, because it's like, how do you know that?
right.
And so I think when like that was like one thing, and the other thing she like expressed to my mom was that she didn't want to be like a vegetable. Like if anything happened to her, like if she was like quad or like paralyzed from like the neck down, she's like, I don't want to, don't let me suffer in that position. I was like, damn, like to have that vision or have that perspective at such a young age. She's like, let me make sure you let me go. And so having those visions, I think at a young age, like not that like she saw that, but she was able to see, like feel that. And so I think, being in that accident and being taken away right away versus being in a place where she would suffer, I think that's like, well, all right, well, that happens. And in my mind, I believe things happen and don't happen for a reason. As much as I wish she was still here and I wish that never happened, there
Yeah.
was obviously a lesson learned in that. And so having her pass away, having it be so quickly and so sudden, I think that's something where she didn't have to suffer, but also it gave perspective and insight to say, hey, like, we have this short time on life. We're not guaranteed tomorrow, next week, next year, but what we can do is definitely make the most of life, make the most of every opportunity we have, and just share it with the people around us. Because, life is finite. We all know that we're not going to live forever. So it's like, what are we doing with the time and how are we impacting our community and the people around us? So, and I think what helped me was that night I was still in Hawaii. I was finishing up my last semester. And I think what kills me the most is that we had a conversation 10 days prior on January 21st, about like there was a boy she liked and she was like, I don't know what to do. Like she really liked him and they were like trying to figure out what they're going to do. And so being as an older sister, being there to like give her advice and hopefully give her some solace. And then having each other, like give each other calls, but missing each other. I think what kills me the most is that she had called me and I missed it and I meant to call her back. And then I was finishing class. I was planning to go to an interview to get a job for my last semester. And my mom had called me. I was in the shower getting ready and she let me know what happened. And it was like, you start to like play everything in your head. Like, well, if I would have called her, would she had not been on the road? Would she have answered her phone? Would she have been paying attention to the road? Like all these things run through your head, right? Like woulda, coulda, shoulda. And I know that's life and you can't. And I think for sure that ran through my head a lot. But I think on that night when I got a red eye back home, she came to me in my dream. I was in like a high-rise apartment. She came to the sliding glass door. It looked super windy. Her hair was crazy. I couldn't really see her face. But as I opened the sliding glass door, it's quiet, it's calm, like her hair is all natural. She's like, I can't come in, but I'm okay. And then I woke up and I was like, I tried to fall back asleep to like go back to find her. But I think in her way, it was her way to communicate to me like, hey, like I can't come back. I'm gone. Right. But like I can communicate to you on how like I'm okay. So I think as much as like I wish I could change it, that was her way to say, hey, like I'm all right. I'll be watching from afar. And so I think that was something for me. My youngest sister, Remy, she was 18 at the time. I think it was really hard for her because they got really, really close. They spent the last, I think, 6-7 months together. And so for her, she's like, well, why didn't she come visit me? You know, like, why didn't she come talk to me? And I think that's hard because maybe she wasn't ready to accept that. And I think that's where perspective in life is. At different points in life, we have to be ready or willing to accept the things that come out in life, whether we like them or not, you know?
Yeah. No, I appreciate sharing it. I mean, it's something, when you're sharing that story too, I had when my dad passed, he was at home in hospice. He was super young. He's like mid-50s. And I remember like, it was like, no one can convince me it wasn't real. And I still don't know what it was, but we have our, we have our faith and respect others who have different ones or same ones. It's fine.
Yeah.
But the joke was that, and I'm going to draw a blank. But anyways, like the angel that comes and gets you to bring you to heaven wasn't enough for him because my dad was a stubborn old man. So I swear to you, I saw Jesus come in and walk in front of me and get him. And they just looked and he kind of smiled and gave me a look like, yeah, I'm good. And then they left.
Yeah.
And they just walked out. And I'm just like, what the heck? Like people call me crazy. I tell you, I was awake and I witnessed it firsthand. It was a dream, but it wasn't. It was like the weird thing. But it's funny how let's say it wasn't spiritual, or let's say it was. Either way, whatever people believe out there, don't care. But it's funny how either the brain or the spirit, whatever it does, knows that my dad was that stubborn that's the thing that was in my head was that they had to send the boss to come get him. So.
That's so funny. No, I think again, like I respect everyone's beliefs, but I do think like to have that essence, right? We have, because I mean, one thing I think this comes more from my mom, but it's like she was more spiritual than anything. But like we have our souls, we have our entity inside of us, right? Like I know it sounds kind of crass, but like we're a meat suit, right? We're all bone, skin, all these muscle. Like our soul and who we are is encapsulated in this. And when we pass, right? Whatever people's beliefs are, right? Like, but I believe there's a higher power that we go and we are in this place. And I think I've heard this before within like the military realms. And like if someone's taken too soon, like they were too good of a person, their soul was too good that they were called to a higher power. Yeah. They were called somewhere else because their time here was, obviously finite and set, but like they were such a good person. They had more to give, but somewhere else, like they had a higher calling somewhere else. And I'm totally butchering that. That's not exactly how it goes, but I know it's respective more to military in terms of people who give their lives. And I think that can be transferred to people that, again, young kids or young adults that like they are taken suddenly. And I think that's something that's like, all right, like kind of gives us holes. Like, all right, she was so important and so special that like her time here was special and she had made an impact. And now she's somewhere else. Right. So same thing with your dad. And I think anyone, friends and families and people that we know that they were called to somewhere else.
Yeah. No, amen to that. I appreciate that. And where's your younger sister at now?
She's in Puyallup outside Seattle, like Tacoma area.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll be getting to see her, my mom next week for like an early Thanksgiving.
Nice. Yeah. And our parents are in Seattle as well, or different part of the country?
My mom's there. My dad's in Utah. So they're split. But yeah, so my mom was actually here in Vegas for about 2.5 years. She was dealing with some health issues. I got her out of Montana. Had spent like 30 years in Montana. Like I said, we grew up there. And so got her down here to kind of be closer. She had some health issues, some health scare. And I'm glad I got her down here because she had a kind of a emergency surgery about a year and a half ago and had to get her to the hospital. And where we lived in Montana was about 45-ish minutes from like the closest hospital. So my concern is if something like that happened, that wouldn't be close enough. And when she had that health scare here last year, the hospital here was like 5-7 minutes away. And I think that definitely helped her from making it and like not leaving too early, we'll say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, glad she got some of the help she needed.
Yeah, so she's doing a lot better now, so that's good. And that's why I
That's
think
good.
again, like just been advocate, like, hey, like as you get older, like health becomes maybe not as a priority and you start to have issues. So it's like, what can we do now as preventative care to make sure we're in a good state, right? And it doesn't have to be
Right.
crazy. It could be like walking up and down your stairs, could be doing 5 minutes of movement every day, walking, hiking, whatever it is. So it's like what we're doing now will have an impact not only tomorrow, but in 5 years, 10 years, etc.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to get into some of your clientele and your approaches. But before we do that, I just have a couple more selfish curiosities, if you don't
Yeah.
mind. So, so growing up in Montana, like obviously anyone can look at your page. You're doing all these like, pretty intense, hard things to do with your training, with, all kinds of different shooting events or things you're there with, and then golf as well. So,
Yeah.
are there did a lot of these things that you pick up in Montana? Was it like a community or family type kind of thing? Like as far as, the, like, I guess we'll take golfing first. Is that something that you grew up with? Is something that,
Yeah, so it's funny. So my dad loved golfing, so we wanted my sisters and I to do it. So we all started. I was 8, Cheerson was 6, and Remy was 4. So we all did, yeah, we all did golf for like I think every summer in Missoula. And then when I think it probably like 4 years down the road, I was like, all right, my parents were like, if you want to get good at something, you're gonna have to focus on, not 5 sports, but maybe 2. So I focused on volleyball and golf. And so I focused on those 2 sports going into high school. I really wanted to do golf or volleyball at the collegiate level. I was too short for volleyball, 5'7", and for golf, they didn't have a team at Hawaii Pacific University. So I kind of focused on study abroad, but I kind of just kept it here and there. I'd play from time to time. And then in 2018, I actually had found long drive on the Golf Channel. And so was kind of looking at that. I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of cool, something different. And so I started getting to long drive. I competed in 2019, had to kind of change my swing a little bit. I have a lot of power and strength in my hips and legs from all my CrossFit training. The problem is I also have a lot of upper body muscle. So my rotation was kind of limited. So compared to some of the golfers or the females that I compete with, my rotation would be limited by a few handful of inches, right? I couldn't get as far back as the other ladies, but it's a really cool experience. My longest drive is 347 yards. So
47? Wow.
yeah, so I was like, I love it. Like my goal is like, all right, got it at 350, and then eventually I was like, I love a 400. That'd be cool. One of the ladies, Phyllis, she actually out of I think it's New Zealand. She had a 400, I think in 2018, 2017. She got a really good bouncing, obviously bounce and roll. So it was like 401 or 402. I was like, all right, that'd be cool. But I had the opportunity to travel a little bit for that. I really liked it. It was great. I think what made it kind of difficult was that the men's division, there's, 75 to 100 people. So entry was like $40. For women, there was 10 to 15 women. So entry was like $400 to $500. So it made
Oh,
it kind of hard cost wise to travel, pay the entry fee, etc. So, but that's funny because the first event I did was actually in Yucca Valley, California. And I saw it as, oh, the open division. In my mind, in CrossFit, the open division was just everybody open. It's open to anyone. I'm like, all right, cool. So I signed up like $40, no big deal. I get down there, I'm like, we're the chicks. I'm like, where are the ladies? And it was all guys. I was like, are there any other ladies signed up? Like there were 2 ladies, but they found out it was only guys hitting, so they canceled. I was like, well, shit, I'm down here. Like I might as well hit. So I ended up hitting, I think I hit like a 341 that day. It was horrible. I hit it super thin, but it was on the grid. And the years or the rules have kind of changed over the years, but it was like essentially you had 3 minutes, 8 balls to hit within those 3 minutes. And so when I got up on like the tee and then they hit the buzzer, like all the nerves came back, like CrossFit competition. So it was a
nice.
really cool experience. I enjoyed it a lot. I love golfing. I love going and like I think I like to hit balls from the range a little bit more just because I've spent more time doing that. My putting and short game kind of suffered a little bit because I was only hitting at the range. But I think it's a great thing to do because I've been able to do that with my clients. I've been able to like do events and get out and go play. But I've loved golf. I think growing up, I did it, like 10 plus years growing up from like 8 to 18. So I think that gave a good base. I think it's a great sport or great activity because I think a lot of people like to get into it because of business and meetings, and people do a lot of work on the golf course. Like I said, I got into a little bit of jujitsu. I really liked that, grappling jujitsu. I got to do some training sessions with Dan and Savannah. Dan competes in the UFC. And so just trying to push that bubble out, get more into it. Again, I'd like to do more, but it's just like, let me find more hours in the day to do all this, right?
Right.
And then like with the shooting aspect, I did a tactical games in 2022. And that was really unique because that kind of started, I know we kind of talked about it earlier, but my garage was broken into in 2020. And so for me, it was a safety issue, right? Like one, someone breaks in, like two, are they going to come back? Like, am I prepared? Do I know how to defend myself? And so that was a big security thing for me, is like, can I make sure I'm in a position where I can take care of myself if something happens? And so I ended up, doing some kind of one-on-one training with rifle and pistol and shotgun, making sure that I was in a good position to like be prepared. Started doing some dry fire. That was actually at the 6 Hour grand opening, which I want to say that was in 2022. Yeah. So this was like kind of right after. So I did some training, and then I did my tactical games in 2022 later that year. And this was actually, I had done the Hunter Games in 20. I did the Hunter Games with Sig, a friend of mine, who essentially was a teams competing kind of as a competition element. I'll have to share some videos and photos of that, but essentially it was a competition element of learning how, or having to have a set amount of time. I think we had like 20 or 30 minutes to glass for our target, hit our targets. We each had 3 shots each person. We were all female teams, so there was 4 of us, and then our range officer. And then essentially we had like, I think 7 different stations. So we had like 30 minutes to get to the next station. We'd hear a buzzer, same thing. So that was kind of cool, a little bit different, but it also opened that door to wanting to learn how to hunt and learn how to shoot with a single bolt rifle. And so for myself, again, I don't have lots of experience. Again, like the 2022 was 3 years ago. So relatively newer to shooting. But for me, I think it was the aspect of education, knowing how to handle a firearm, knowing how to release the mag, to make sure it's clear, clean my weapon. Again, if something is in a situation where I need to protect myself or protect my family or protect the people I'm with, like knowing how to do that. I think it's really, I'm a huge advocate for that. I ended up getting my CCW in 2020, and I can, continue to renew that. I think when I first did my first tactical games, I had a lot of women reach out to me specifically like, hey, like I'm interested in getting into shooting, or I want to get my CCW, but I'm scared. I don't know where to start. Or there's only men, instructors out there. And the guy was an a-hole to me. I'm like, man, that sucks. That shouldn't be the case. And so I'm not an firearms instructor. I've thought about that. I'm like, I would love to get that certification to be able to help teach and coach others. Not that I have space or time for it right now, but maybe in the future. But I'm a huge advocate for that because I don't, like I said, I have like 3 years experience. Obviously I would need a lot more training and education for that to become an instructor, but I think it's very important. I'm a huge advocate to say, hey, like find someone that has instruction. There are female shooters and female coaches and instructors out there. Find it, become a little more comfortable. Obviously you always, treat the firearm with respect. You follow the rules, you know exactly what you're doing every single time. But I think I'm a huge advocate. I know I'm a huge advocate for that because it's been life-changing for me to feel more comfortable and knowing if I had to be in a situation where I had to protect my family, I can be prepared. And obviously dry fire drills are important. Going to the region is important. Not everyone has access to that, but that opened the door to becoming more educated, opened the door to wanting to learn how to hunt, which I did a hunting course 2 years ago with SIG again out in Wyoming. Hopefully that'll lead to a hunt maybe down the road in the future. But for me, I'm looking at it as, all right, I'm providing for myself and my family and being able to, go and hunt and get my own meat versus, having to go to the store. I think there's a disconnection between where people get their food. Like, oh, I just go to the grocery store and get my food. I'm like, yeah, but how does the food get there? And what's the quality of the food? And that's a whole nother conversation, obviously, rabbit hole we can go down on. But I think it's important to be understanding and be like kind of like the Wizard of Oz. Like you pull back the curtain, you actually look what's going on there, because people don't realize that. Even with the wine business and the wine industry, like you don't realize all that goes into it: shipping costs, fulfillment costs, licensing costs. Right? Every state's different. So, anyways, I can ramble on about that.
No, definitely. I definitely want to get into that. I know you got a packed day, so I'll try to cram in as much as I can here. My brain is firing with all these questions and topics.
I know,
but which is awesome. It's awesome. But I will say this. So my wife is more, dare I say, like that type A, if you will, or like really likes like, you know, she was an athlete, you know, whatever, like more competitive, etc. My point of bringing that up is she's like, I don't like guns. I'm never, no, like, and you know, I got my CCW and all that, and then, you know, she went through it with me, but was like, I'm still not going to get a handgun. I'm like, yeah, you are, you know. So short or long,
Eventually,
she goes this women's retreat, and some of the women were like, hey, we're going to go shoot. You want to go? And I didn't know anything about it, right? So she went and shot. She came back all like, I love shooting. So now she's like, she knows more. Yeah, she knows more about way more about like shotguns and marksmanship and all that than me. Because like one of our gifts I got her was I bought like an instructor at the local range, like that does like competitive shooting. And then there's some days where like she was going so regularly that I'm like, hey, I'm kind of chill today. Like I'm cool with my wife out shooting me the entire time. That's cool. I was like, so let me go ahead and I'll just walk with you and just keep you company, honey. Like, and she's just
I'm just gonna hang out, watch you crush the target. So that's hilarious.
I will say there's two things in our marriage that I say this with a smile that were ruined. But one is shooting. No, I'm kidding. But I do have the handguns because she's like, this is so much power. Like sometimes she's more uncomfortable with that. So I still have that on her. But I will say, going back to golf, I did not like pick up a club until my 30s. And she grew up on a golf course with her dad. So like before we were dating and we were just like hanging out with friends, like she'd give me pointers, you know, I'd hit the ball, whatever. Soon as after the first date, it was like, not a chance. Like I'm like, and I said it jokingly, like I'm not that guy that can't take instruction. I say it more like I can just feel my testosterone leaving me as my wife hits the ball further and says I swing like a girl, you know. But yeah, she's got a thing where she hits with men's clubs. And then I was going to ask you too, because like she will not hit from the women's tees. She's like,
that's so funny because I never hit from the women's tees too.
Yeah, she's like, I don't need any special tees. I'm like,
I love it. That's awesome.
I don't think she's into.
Cool.
She's not at like the 350s, but she can drive pretty good. I don't think quite at that level, but I'm sure she's definitely ultra competitive too. Because whenever I tell someone that she's good at golf, she's like, why do you say that? Because ever since we got married, and we've been married a long time, she's like, I don't get out enough, and so now I'm not as good. I'm like, don't worry about it. It's like, you know, so I of course know I'm an embellish
person for sure. That's hilarious. So, yeah, I think that competitiveness. I think type A people for sure. It's like you're like, all right, well, I'm gonna push myself, challenge myself. It's like I can't remember the last time I played for women's tees. It probably was back in high school when I was, doing competition. But ever since then, I'm like, heck it, like I'll hit with the guys. If they're hitting off the blues or the blacks, I'm hitting there too. Because one, that's gonna give you more practice. I'll focus on, making sure I'm hitting long. But again, if you don't get out, you definitely lose it. I went out with a client, actually had a chance and opportunity to go to what's the night? It's in Calgary, Banff, the golf course in Banff. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And my golf game was horrible because I haven't played in at least over a year. And I got to enjoy the scenery, got to enjoy the course. It was gorgeous. But yeah, I think I could get what she's saying. I relate with her. It's like if you don't go out as often, things get kind of rusty and you're not hitting the fairway, maybe you'll have it in the rough. So it's like, but I love it. That's awesome.
Well, that's the thing is I know I suck, so really bad. So it's funny to me where if she has a bad shot, it's like, uh-oh.
I guess I'm the bad you're actually, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, no, totally get it. Cause like I said, her family, they grew up playing all the time. She worked at a country club through school. So it was almost awesome. Every day, so it's yeah, definitely completely different exposure there. And I'm a complete meathead to where I remember I'm like, no, I do some things that you should be pretty sore with. I was more sore from 18 holes than anything because I kept hitting the ground or I'd hit it wrong or muscle the swing and torque. And I'm just
push it. Yeah. Feel your
and I'm like, hey, I did say I've done some lessons. I'm like, I'll do it and just I'll keep it in mind. And her brother golfs all the time. He's really good. He's like, no, I'll work with you. And I'm just like, I get it, but I enjoy other things so much that I don't want to mess up the training for that either because I'm an idiot. I'll muscle it. I'll swing too hard. I'll tweak my back or something. Yeah. So anyways, I got off on a tangent about golf. I don't even know if anyone's still listening.
Right. I get
it. But yeah, so you definitely seek out competition. I think that's a fair statement, right?
Yeah. Never sounds about right.
So I wanted to get into a little bit of, I guess, if we hopefully I can get through both, but like your training and then kind of like your approach to clients. And so I think maybe if we talk a little bit about like, what is the typical client out there you're working with? What is working with you look like? Maybe I know we're painting with a broad brush here, just kind of
Yeah.
just overview, but like if you had to take percentages, like the highest percentage of people you work with, what does your programs look like? All that fun stuff.
Yeah. So I would say I work with clientele that are busy professionals, like 30 to 40s plus. I work with individuals that maybe are pressed for time. They need a set program that's going to be, hey, I need to stay healthy for my job. I need to be active, or I'm coming back from injury, or I'm getting ready for a surgery. How do I get prepared? I think a lot of people see, hey, like I have something coming up or I have a surgery coming up. I can't train. It's like, no, you can train. Let's get you in the best shape possible before you have that surgery, before you have certain things going on. So I've worked with a variety of clients, but I would say working professionals, 30 and plus are kind of my focus areas. I work with both men and women, probably have a little bit more heavier on the men's side. I think a lot of clients that I've worked with over the years, they're looking for someone that, maybe has gone through a lot of things physically in the gym, right? They've gone through hardship, they've gone through injuries, which I've definitely gone through. And so they want someone that's going to, hey, like I work with them. Obviously I work with remote clients on an individual one-on-one basis. So it's like, what are your specific needs? A lot of things are kind of curated to what they're looking to focus on. But also we look at nutrition, we look at sleep, because fitness is just like one triangle or one piece, right? You think of a pie, you have 6 or 7 different pieces of that pie. Fitness is one of them. Mindset's another one. So we look about mindset. We do journal work. I work with some clients maybe more on a business goal orientated basis. So it's maybe not more fitness. We're still approaching fitness, but maybe that piece of the pie is a little smaller. And then business goals, time management goals are a little bit more of a focal point. So I would say that's kind of the focus of my clients. Then I do also have clientele that I work more on a general program. So that general program is more like, hey, I only have an hour to get in the gym. We work on aerobic and anaerobic capacity. We work on mobility, and mobility is a staple that I have in all my programs, whether it's a general program or a specific program. I've noticed people do not like mobility is like the black plague. They're like, I can't do mobility. It's hard. I don't want to do it. I'm like, no, mobility and movement in general is like brushing your teeth. You should be doing it every day. And I tell people that, they're like, that's yeah, that kind of makes sense. Like you don't wait all week till Sunday or Saturday and do it for an hour, and like you brush your teeth every day. You don't think about it. It just comes natural, part of your day. So movement and or stretching should be part of your day. Our body is going to take the shape of what we do the most, right? So if we sit the most, hip flexors will get tight, hamstrings will get elongated, they'll feel tight, but they're weak. And so I think when I work with clients, like mobility and stretching or I call them prehab exercises, back, shoulder, hip, whatever, that is a staple. And of course, if people want more of a general broad program, that general program focuses on conditioning, right? Strength and conditioning, right? Some sort of strength. I think it's important because my whole focal point is what we're doing in the gym should supplement and help you outside the gym. So you're building strength in the gym. If you want to go outside and play with your kids, if you want to go for a hike, you want to go climbing, that should be very functional. And again, a lot of the people, there might be a small percentage that want to compete, right? Whether it's CrossFit or they want to compete in running, that's a sliver. But the majority of people that I work with, they're looking for like the average, like, hey, I want to feel good. I want to look good. I want to make sure my health is going to keep me along around as long as possible and around as long as possible.
No, it's funny you mentioned like the mobility piece because I want to say it was like late 30s. Like I knew it. This is what I went to school for, graduate studies in human performance kinesiology, the whole deal. And I never did warm-ups. Like I would just like walk for 5-10 minutes.
You're like, cool, arm stretch, I'm good to go.
Yeah, I'm good. My buddy's like, dude, like we're getting like not only should you be doing this in your early 20s, but like we're getting older, man. You gotta do it. So, anyways, I started doing it. And now what's funny is I've been doing it for so long. It's just I had this guy come up to me. It was nice because I used to, compete in strength sports stuff. So I got a decent size to me and whatever and lean and whatever. And he's like, bro, you're pretty jacked, man, but I haven't seen you touch a weight. Like, what are you doing over here? Because I was doing all body weight stuff. It's like, oh, you haven't been here long enough, man. I'm like, I was like, oh no, this is like a half hour ordeal for me now, man. So it's like,
you're like my workout's 30 minutes and then my workout's another 30 minutes.
Yes, if that, yeah. I mean, I've had like 30-minute warm-ups and like 20-30-minute workout, and it's like you can just get so much more out of it. But to your point, like the mobility and all that, and that's a part of like even like jujitsu. Like when I first got into it, because I competed in bodybuilding like earlier in life, and all the training for aesthetics for the core, and my abs are like 1,000% better functionally and the way they look. and I don't do a single crunch, but because of jujitsu and the moves and the control. And I'm just like, yeah, if I just would have done the stuff that I know works like the whole time, like instead of all these dumb machines and all this other like, isolate stuff, the human body gives you enough resistance and enough to do there. And you can, of course you can add weight, etc. But it's just, it was crazy how much all that utility, comes into that. And so, but with that, I did want to kind of come back to your approach because, how I could imagine there's a lot of value. And I'm thinking of a friend of mine who has a similar, not as knowledgeable on the fitness and nutrition as you are, but he was an Olympic wrestler. And so a lot of his protocols are more about like mindset coaching for people. That's a lot of where he does it. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is like with all of your athletic endeavors, accomplishments, obviously mindset, you're seeking out competition, high level competition at that. What does that look like when you're working with a client as far as mindset, framework, looking at your day? Are there tools or books you recommend, or is it just verbal coaching? Is it they're reading blog posts from you? Like, what is that? Maybe it's all the above. Like, what does the approach look like?
I would say kind of a combination. The biggest thing I have is journal prompts, specifically journal prompts in terms of writing it out. So I'll have kind of like weekly journal prompts and I'll kind of change it. Some will be focused on nutrition. Some will focus on, your approach to preparation or recovery or reflection work. But I mean, I've talked about this, and I might have mentioned it before, but I mean, 99 or 90% is showing up, but it's also mindset and mental. Like we spend the most time talking to ourselves. Like what we say between our ears up here has a direct correlative to our physical and our outlook and anything else we have doing, whether it's in the gym or outside the gym. And so I do weekly check-ins with my clients. And a lot of it, most of it, obviously we'll talk about, what's going on with the training, how's everything else, but a lot of it's environment based, like how's the mind? And some may struggle more with like, hey man, nutrition, like that Snickers is calling my name. So it's like, all right, perspective. And I get it because I don't talk about this too much, but I struggled with the eating disorder in college. Also struggled a little bit with cutting in high school. And so I think that mindset is like what we tell ourselves and what we don't tell ourselves has a big impact and can have a big, huge positive or negative into what we're doing and what we're not doing. And so for them, it's like that weekly check-in is a good, like, hey, let's get back on track. Let's do some journal prompts. I also will recommend books, right? Like one is about habits, like building habits. Atomic Habits is one of the books I've absolutely loved. I resonate with it a lot because a lot of things I already was doing or kind of had in my tool shed. But also getting people to say, hey, let's spend some time reflecting. Because I think in our society, specifically within the US, it's the next goal. It's the next focal point. Like we constantly pushing forward, but how often do we take a step back and say, how far did I come? How far did I start and where am I at now? And how much time did I spend there? Probably a lot more than you give yourself credit. And I think also the expectations we place on ourselves, whether it's an individual, a competitor, a competition we're doing. And I know for myself during the competition, I put all these expectations on myself. Well, I should be doing this unbroken. I should be lifting more weight. I should be snatching 200 pounds, all these things. And it's like, I am now my own worst critic. And so when I work with clients, we talk through that. We say, what it is that you're struggling with, because there are varying degrees of what people are going to work on, but a lot of it is either auditory. So we talk through it, journal work, tell me through it. Or I'll give them prompts like, all right, love for you to read this book. This be something that's beneficial. If you can't do a book, then all right, cool. Let's look at maybe quick motivational quotes or things that resonate with you. And I think we're in a society where it's go, 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 right? Social media is fast, quick. We're scrolling through things. Algorithms are curated. So it's more and more and more. It's like, all right, how can I work with you to slow down? Let's put perspective. And I think a lot of things too, I was just talking to someone about this the other day, is, you have someone that's coming in, they want to change their lifestyle. Instead of saying, hey, we're going to log your protein, fat, carbs, we're going to track your water, you're going to track your sleep, you're going to come to the gym 5 days a week. Saying that, like, whoa, that's a mouthful. That's a lot for them. So let's peel it back. Let's focus on one thing. What is one success you've had today? That's all we're going to focus on. Or let's track your protein. That's one thing at a time. So when it comes to the mindset, like I think less is best sometimes, because if it's too much at once, it can become overwhelming. And for that first week, it might be great, but that's just 1 week out of 52, right? So what's going to help build a consistency? What's going to help build accountability, et cetera?
No, that's great. I mean, it's, I'm curious. So when you're talking about, and I keep pausing because there's like 5 or 6 great points you made. So, but the one
fire hose, I just like, oh, more.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect. One of the ones I'm curious about, like the journaling. So they're journaling and then they're sharing it with you. Is that how that works?
Yep. I'll have them journal and then they'll share with me. Yeah. some people are a little more active on it. Some are like, nah, I'm good. I'm like, okay, again, like I can bring you to the trough but I can't force you to drink.
Yeah.
But
No,
yeah, I
it's a
think journal prompts are great because one, it's something that I give to them, right? And some of them are mostly open-ended questions, right? Like some of them maybe are short, like, what are you feeling today? Or how are you feeling today? Like, oh, I'm good. Okay, well, that's kind of short, right? But I want them to expand because what I've realized is like you talk, right? We physically are sharing words, we're exchanging words. That's one way to get emotions or feelings out. The other I feel like is writing. I love writing because it's another expressive where you're not physically saying it, but once you write it, you can go back and you can read it. And then whether you speak it out loud or you just read it behind your head, inside your head, that's another way to reaffirm. So just like if you're trying to reach a goal, right? I physically like to write out goals, whether it's in my notes, whether it's in an actual notebook, on the computer. I usually have vision boards up. So I look at like, what is it that I'm achieving? Because one, I'm visually seeing it, right? We as humans, we couldn't speak before we could speak. We looked, right? Or we drew pictures or we drew icons. And so I think that's really important for them to physically write that out.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever heard of this, but gosh, this is probably the second time I said this. I think I said this like 4 or 5 weeks ago on a recording. I don't even know if the episode's out yet, but someone called myself out again. I was doing the 5-minute journal. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
Yes, I think it's like a red book or something like that.
Well, yeah, there's different. Well, unfortunately, unfortunately, people who made it probably made a lot, and then they spun out. There's a bunch of spinoffs now on Amazon,
Yeah.
but I have it, and it's like, what are the 3 things you're most grateful for? What are the 3 things that make today great? I am statements. And then you end your day with like, what happened today that was great, blah, blah, blah. And then you would like carry over to the next day and it would have like a quote or something to make you think. And just that short mental exercise reframes me so much for the day. That, cause I got in this habit of like getting up half awake, letting the dogs out, kind of getting the house opened up and listening to like a podcast, which is fine. But sometimes admittedly, they might be talking about absolutely nothing. And I'm just like letting the time pass because I'm half awake, but I need to get back to that routine in the morning. And the second question I was going to ask, so just go back to the mindset. Do you ever work on, I'm just more of a curiosity because I hear some people do this, some don't, but work on like wording, like if someone says, I'm going to try, or if they're going to say get to versus have to, like,
Yep.
There's some pretty good, I think the one of them is, like the no complaining rule. It's a really short read book that has a lot of that. The Energy Bus is another one.
I love that book by Gordon. Yeah,
Gordon,
I love
yeah.
that book.
Yeah.
I actually recommend it to one of my clients, and he got the book for his team, for his work team.
Oh yeah,
like, that's
the
awesome.
energy vampires, right?
Yeah, I'm all about, and it's funny because I worked with a life coach over the years, and back in 2010, she talked about energy vampires, and like
John
that's
Gordon,
something I talked about. People were like, yeah, and I'm like, I think it's so spot on because you'll spend time with people, and you're like, I'm fucking exhausted afterwards. Like they just suck the life out of you. Yeah, it's
John Gordon.
John Gordon. Yeah, I highly recommend that. Is another book I love, Energy Bus. I think it's great. But to answer your question, yes, the tone you speak to yourself, but also the words you speak. Like, I can't do this. Well, of course, you're never going to do it because you say I can't, right? So I will do this, or I'm going to do this versus I'm going to try. Like your try is like, well, that doesn't mean you're going to guarantee. Like, no, I will do this. And I think it's interesting because I think people are like, well, I didn't actually do it yet. I'm like, well, yeah, you didn't actually do it yet. But the problem is if you start to continuously say that, you're not like, well, eventually I'll try that, or eventually I'll try this. It's like you're just putting that little phrase of that one word in there, try, and now you're never going to get there. So like taking that again, the refrains like, I will work on this, or I'm going to work on this, or I will be there. Like, and I mean, I worked with a sports psychologist. My coach had me work with a sports psychologist back in 2012 and absolutely loved it. It was great. I would throw temper tantrums when I couldn't snatch 95 pounds or 100 pounds. So it was good for me to like reset, come back to center. But the 3 things we worked on, and I utilize this with my clients now, I try to make sure I do it for myself, is kind of 3 things, right? What would be like a success for the day? What was a success for the day? What was an area of improvement, right? Not so much a weakness, but an area of improvement. And then overall takeaway with a positive spin, right? And obviously a lot of this was focused kind of in the gym and training, but it was focusing on like, what was something I celebrated? Was a success? What was an area of improvement I could work on? Maybe it's my handstand push-ups, maybe not getting upset after I couldn't snatch. But the overall takeaway is like, all right, I'm spending more time in the gym. I'm working towards my goals, etc. And that is something I've worked with a lot with my clients. And this kind of ties into like my work hard, wind down message with my brand, but also what I do just in general in terms of training and coaching and speaking. but it's like you celebrate the successes, you embrace the struggles, right? We're going to spend so much more time in the journey, right? Like say you start your college degree here, then you walk across the platform and you get your diploma. Those are two moments that are going to be kind of small and short, right? But all this time in between, that's where you're spending most of the time. Like, are you happy? Are you enjoying yourself? There are going to be ups and downs. And I just saw this today. It was an individual. He shared this video reel on Instagram. And, he was saying how people complain that life isn't a straight line, but it mimics a heartbeat, right? The heartbeat goes up, down, up, down, up, down. If you have a straight line, you're dead, right? Like, I know it sounds kind of cynical, but I found that very interesting because we are going to have high points. We are going to have low points, and we are going to have these ebbs and flows, but it's like, how can we look at the successes as something to celebrate? How can we look at the struggles as something to learn from, right? Because what you have to go through or what you go through and how you learn from that or how you react to that will set yourself up for the other challenge or the other struggle you'll face. And so I think, again, it's really important to have perspective, and it's hard to have that perspective when you're in it. So if you can take that step back and reflect a little bit, and that's where that journal work comes in. That's where that mindset piece comes in. I think it's really important. Again, it's harder to measure, like flexibility. Like, are my hamstrings a little more flexible? Is my mindset a little better? Am I more positive today? It's something that's a little harder to measure versus, hey, I have two more pounds in my back squat, or hey, I bench press 5 more pounds. Is a little bit harder to kind of have those measure tools against, I would say. But at the same time, the consistency and the accountability, and if you're able to build that habit for 21 days, then eventually it's going to become more consistent and more of a staple in your routine.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. 'Cause it's funny when you're talking to, like, the one guy I was talking about, whenever I text with him, because we're getting together in like 2 weeks to train because we live pretty far away. But I always have to delete my text and rewrite it because I'm like, hey, I'm going to check my schedule and I'll try to get it in next week with you or whatever. And I'm like, nope, no try. Like, don't say try, because he's like my accountability partner.
I can do this date at this time.
Yes, I was the one that used to do it to people. So like, as soon as like I got lazy and then I met him, and it just like brought all this back to where I was like, man, like so it's nice to have that. I guess my point is that we all need it. We all need that. Like you mentioned, working with sports psychologists and different coaches. And so even the highest level, needs that accountability partner and just kind of people helping them reframe things. So, no, I appreciate you sharing all that.
Of course.
I know we're kind of coming up on time here, so I did want to hit one or two more questions, then we can kind of round out things and point people and where they can engage with you more. Definitely appreciate you hopping on. But one of the questions I had, and I don't really know how to unpack this but I'm just curious, like your approach to the cardio, the volume of endurance training, if you will. You got some pretty intense, anaerobic, more explosive type training. And then, but you're still carrying a really good amount of like lean tissue and muscle. And I know that's, some men, and women, but I would say probably maybe a little more men. Cause there's still some women out there afraid of the bulky thing, which we all know is not really the case.
Never going to happen.
Yeah. How do you find that balance in your approach? What does like a week or a training cycle look like? And I'm sure context is key. So whatever phase you look at to approach that, A, I'm thinking of, and then B, like what nutrition do you do to support that? Because, I'm looking at like some of your CrossFit images, which for those who can see, I'll pull it up while we're talking here, but you're pretty jacked in these. And then you also obviously are just crushing it on the endurance side of things, so like what does that approach look like for you?
Yeah. So I'll give kind of perspectives. Like, so back then when I was competing, I was training probably 6 to 8 hours a day, 5 to 6 days a week, right?
Wow.
Not straight through, right? Doing warm-ups and strength training sessions, mobility, accessory work, conditioning. And so I was competing again, like the high level. So my training sessions were important. They were my priority, right? I did coach at the time, but not as much. So I was training 6 to 8 hours a day. I was probably eating 300 to 320, maybe 50 if I had some donuts in there, grams of carbs. I was trying to get 170 to 180 grams of protein. Fat wasn't so worried because it's easy to hit. But yeah, I was definitely heavier on the carbs. I think a lot of athletes now within the CrossFit space, they're probably eating more, maybe heavier to the 400 grams of carbs from some of the athletes I've talked to or have seen kind of what they've shared. But that was a big priority. And so endurance was important. I was probably running at least twice a week, maybe intervals 2 to 3 times a week. So maybe a long chill run intervals, and then maybe running in a workout, depending on my day, 2 to 3 strength training sessions. So maybe it was a complex with a clean, hang clean squats and maybe a jerk complex and maybe back squats or bench. And then a 1 to 2 conditioning pieces, depending on what I had. And with CrossFit, it's hard because you didn't want to necessarily be a 10 in one thing. You could be a 10,
Right.
like you could be the great out of one thing, but you wanted to be more around an 8, 7 to 9 8 average on everything. Because again, you're testing at a variety of athletes or variety of movements. You didn't know what the workouts were going to be. So you constantly want to be pushing and challenging yourself. And I will say, I know back in my CrossFit days, I was a little bit obviously thicker. Like I still was toned and lean, but I had a little more mass on me. I was eating more, right? Now I'm a little, not like, I'm not say bulky, but I'm still lean, but I don't have as much volume, I would say, in my muscle work. So I'm not eating as many carbs because I'm not doing as much training, right? When I did a marathon in October, so about a month ago. And so training looked a lot different. I was trying to focus mainly on my endurance and being able to get the volume. I wasn't concerned so much with my time, but more about I need to get my body adapted to running 26.2 miles. And so I was strength training maybe 1 to 2 times a week. And that would include maybe some lifts, maybe a small conditioning piece, but I was trying to run at least 3 times a week. My plan had about 4 days of running, and some, if I wasn't traveling and I could get the 4 days of running in, I might have 1 strength training day and then 4 days of running. If I was, on the road and I wasn't able to get as much training in, I'd get maybe 3 days of running, and then I would have maybe 1 to 2 strength training days, depending on travel. There was times where I, maybe missed a run or missed a training session, but it's like, that's the nature of things. It's going to happen. So I think it just kind of depends. Now I'm done with my marathon. I'm trying to get back into the gym now. So I'm trying to get back in the routine of being like 4 to 5 days. I'm just getting back into it. So I'd say it's more about 4 days right now. Like I said, I used to do 6 to 8 hours. Now I'm like maybe 1 to 2. 2 to 3 would be nice if I had the time. Sometimes I'm like, I got 90 minutes. I got an hour. I got to get in and out. And it's funny because when I say that, I'm like, oh, it's such not amount of time. People are like, whoa, an hour, 90 minutes. So it's again, perspective. But my focus now is I'd like to do maybe a weightlifting meet or a powerlifting meet. So the focus would be, try to get my mobility in, my warm-ups in, and then some lifting. And then focus on still getting back into conditioning, still do CrossFit. I love the community of CrossFit. So I love doing classes. Plus I also like that it tests my fitness level wise. And to your answer of cardio, I think cardio is great. I think a lot of people think of cardio as like long, steady zone 2 cardio, which I think it has its place, right? Walking can be great, rowing, biking, something chill. I think it's great for building that aerobic base. The bigger the base you have, the taller the pyramid you could have. So I think it's very beneficial and helpful for people. I think conditioning in terms of like interval conditioning is great because people that are pressed for time, they don't have a lot of time. Intervals are great because it pushes that intensity, trains that anaerobic capacity or the anaerobic training, and then allows your body to recover to see if you can repeat that, which I think is good. I think that neuroendocrine response that the body stimulates, but also the hormones your body stimulates or produces from that intervals training session can be helpful for people that maybe they want the aesthetics, like, hey, I want to look good, but I only have like 30 minutes. Like, cool, let's do a quick warm up. Let's do a little mobility. Let's do a quick little interval piece and get you in and out. And I think that's important for people that are out there like, hey, well, what are your goals, right? Do you just want to look good and feel good, right? Do you want to have strength training to like make sure you can like lift your kids or pull up groceries from the car? You only want to make one run. You don't want to like make multiple runs, or what does that look like? So, and then nutrition into that. Obviously, I'm not eating as many calories, not so much more grams of carbs. I don't worry so much about calories, but my protein is still pretty high. I try to at least at 150 to 170 grams of protein. I think that's one thing I stress for people out there if they are struggling, trying to change their nutrition, like put emphasis on protein. Try to get at least 1 gram of protein per pound of desired body weight. So if you want to be 150, 150 grams of protein. And if you're like, I only eat 50, cool. Going from 50 to 150 is very difficult. So slowly titrate up there.
100%. Yeah, no, I often find that
fire hose of stuff.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. I mean, because I often find that like, especially in women's health, there's little adjustments I'd make in the statement for men, but just for the sake of time, where I'll just I don't coach people, but like friends and family and stuff. I'm like, start with your protein, then go to fiber, then go to fluid, non-caloric fluid like water, basically, or whatever. Like if you're going to use a flavor, I'm just don't even care. Just want to make sure you get enough of those 3, and then you'll find that then start a diet. For people who mainly are trying to lose weight as well. And I'm like, once you're eating so much of the good stuff, there's not as much volume to even be able to grab the not so good stuff, or whatever. That's kind of, or to eating that, caloric surplus of like the not really satiating food that's really calorically dense or highly processed. So I'm really glad you nailed that one home on the protein piece, because that's a big one. I think that help a lot of people, but it's specifically, women. Men tend to get closer to more, but I think a lot of times with men, it's too fatty of a source. They're eating, fast food and, heavy amounts of, like a 70-30 or 80-20 kind of blend of a meat. And it's just like, just kind of loading them up.
Well, I think too, if you're eating better quality food, that's going to make a huge difference versus, hey, I'm going to McDonald's every day. I'm like, cool. Like, let's maybe go to McDonald's 3 times versus 5 times a week. Like, and eventually, and I just talked to someone about this the other day, like you start to cut out like crappy foods and like sugary stuff. When you reintroduce them, like, ugh, they're going to taste
Oh,
different.
yeah.
Like I've had some stuff where like, I'm like, oh, I remember what it tastes like. And then I have it. I'm like, ugh. And now people be like, oh, you've been healthy your entire life. I'm like, no, I used to eat Cheetos and Mountain Dew before volleyball practice. And my coach was like, what are you doing? Why are you eating this before training? I'm like, that was my junior year. And I remember that was like the first time I'm like, probably should not do that anymore since my coach just yelled at me. But it was good. It was a good moment where I'm like, I didn't really think about it. But if it wasn't for him saying that, I wouldn't have kind of had like a, oh, maybe I don't need to eat Cheetos and Mountain Dew before.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Change it up. And that was kind of the first time I started like, all right, maybe I'll drink more water. Then I started carrying a water bottle with me all the time. Granted, I did go to Mexico for like our Mexico trip, and I brushed my teeth and I was like, I drank some water. I'm like, probably shouldn't have done that. So I took the pills that I got, like, to make sure I don't get any bacteria or throw up. And then it was like, you need to drink a liter of water, 1.5. And so I was like, I just started carrying a water bottle with me. And I think that was good though, because it set the precedent of like, all right, I need to make sure I'm drinking water. And that got me into a healthier lifestyle. That changed my mindset, got rid of the Cheetos, got rid of the Mountain Dew. I haven't had a Mountain Dew since high school, so that's probably a good thing. I've had Dr. Pepper here and there. So I'm like that, but anyways.
Yeah. Well, I know you got to get running, moving on. So I really appreciate your time and joining us.
Of course, I really enjoyed this.
We'll have this all. Yeah, no, likewise. And we'll have all this in the show notes, but just for those maybe listening on audio, Margaux, if you wouldn't mind just giving them kind of high level, where can they find you? Website, Instagram, etc.,
Sure,
all that
yeah.
good stuff.
So website's my name, margauxalvarez.com. And then most of my social, like TikTok or LinkedIn, YouTube is Margaux Alvarez. On Twitter and on Instagram, it's 321GO, GAUX. And then I have my Just Go, which is just, and then GAUX, which is my kind of training page that I have as well for people looking for like the quick 5-minute workouts.
Nice. Yeah. No, I appreciate you joining us. And for everyone who's listening in, be sure to send in your questions, comment, and like and share and all that good stuff to help the algorithm for YouTube and our audio platforms that the episode's going to be on. But if you have specific questions for Margaux, definitely send them our way. We'll gladly connect you to her content so you can engage with her and get the answers you're looking for. Or if there's resources she has that are out there that we can pass along to you, the listener, we definitely will be happy to do that. So thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. And thanks again, Margaux, for joining us on the podcast today. So we'll see you guys.
Thank
Take
you.
care.